But first, Mika, let's bring the National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications of the White House, retired Rear Admiral John Kirby. Admiral, thank you so much for being with us. Mika and I were talking this morning before the show, just going through the news, and we're looking at energy prices continuing to go up. We're talking about the possibility of Russia once again using food shortages as they did against the Ukrainians in the 1930s to starve 2 million Ukrainians. But now it's against them shipping food across the world. This grinding war of attrition, the Russians making slow but steady progress in the Donbass. If you look at the impact, this really is, whether we want one or not, in a way, this is turning into a world war, a war against economies, a war against food supplies. Does the White House, what's the level of concern at the White House that things are not going the way we want them to go there?
Well, certainly, you've heard the president talk, Joe, about the Putin price hike, right? The impact globally of Mr. Putin's unprovoked war in Ukraine and the impact that that's having, obviously, on the prices at the pump, but also, now it's going to impact food security, not just in Europe, but around the world. So, I mean, there absolutely is going to be and has been a global impact of this war in Ukraine, which is why we're working so hard to make the Ukrainians better on the battlefield, to give them the kinds of security assistance they need to fight back and to win back their territory.
So obviously the narrative's changed over the past couple of weeks. The Russians obviously have consolidated their troops. They're not trying to take over an entire country. They're consolidated, and that mass is having more of an impact in a grinding war of attrition. What else do we need to do? What else does the West need to do to let the Ukrainians push the Russians back?
We are continuing to talk to the Ukrainians every single day, Joe, about their military requirements. And as you know, we now have additional funding available to us to send more material into Ukraine. And I think you're going to start to see additional packages very, very soon of other capabilities that we know that they could benefit from in this fight in the Donbass. You know, you talked about this grinding fight, and that's a very good way of describing it, Joe. This is a smaller geography. It's a part of Ukraine that the Russians and the Ukrainians have been fighting over literally since 2014. They're both familiar with the terrain, and it's very dependent on what we call long-range fires, artillery. So the kinds of material, the kinds of assistance we're going to give them are really going to be designed to help them with that standoff range and to be able to defend themselves more capably in what is a very flat, sort of open topography.
Admiral, good morning. You all in the White House just moments ago announcing President Biden will take a trip to Saudi Arabia next month to meet with the Crown Prince, someone he called a pariah during the presidential campaign. What will be his message on issues of oil? Obviously, that's front and center for many Americans right now, but also on issue of human rights.
Now, the president's going to Saudi Arabia because they're hosting the Gulf Cooperation Council +3, so 9 heads of state from the region to talk about a whole range of issues, multilateral and bilateral, in the region, including counterterrorism. But absolutely, I mean, look, oil production is going to be part of that discussion, and we would note that OPEC +3 just increased by 50% the increases they already planned to do in July and August. So there's obviously going to be some discussions about energy production, but also, I mean, look, again, the destabilizing behavior of Iran, that'll be front and center as well. Ending the war in Yemen. We have a truce now, Willie, that's 2 months in, actually 9 weeks in, and got extended for another 2 months. That'll save thousands of lives. There's a lot of work to be done inside the GCC. And, of course, the president will speak bilaterally with those heads of state as well.
Admiral Kirby, Jonathan Lemire, I want to push a little further on that Saudi trip. Economic analysts have said that, even if Saudi were to put more oil in there, first of all, it's not clear they can produce much more than they already have, and it wouldn't make necessarily that much more of a difference. Administration officials, though, while previewing this trip, say the president will indeed meet the Crown Prince there, Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, someone he has been very critical of in the past, who authorities have said is responsible for the death and dismemberment of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. What will be the purpose of that meeting, sir?
He's going to meet bilaterally with King Salman and King Salman's team. And of course, the Crown Prince is on that team. So I suspect he will certainly see the Crown Prince in the context of these meetings. But he's very grateful for the King's invitation, for the King's willingness to host the GCC plus 3. And he's looking forward to again, a wide scope of discussions. And obviously, look, human rights is something we bring up with partners and friends and folks all over the world every time we meet. It's a key component of the president's foreign policy. He believes that foreign policy has to be rooted in our values. Obviously, human rights will come up as a part of that discussion.
And on that, when the president does meet with the Crown Prince, specifically, will he address the murder of Mr. Khashoggi?
Oh, look, I'm not going to get ahead of individual discussions that the president's going to have. I mean, he has, as you know, held Saudi Arabia accountable through a series of measures when he released and published that report from the intelligence community about the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. He has spoken very strongly about that. I don't want to get ahead of individual discussions, but clearly, look, human rights are always on the agenda when we're meeting with counterparts all over the world.
All right. Thank you so much, Admiral John Kirby. Greatly appreciate you being with us, as always.